Mr. Happy Living here, and I'm happy to be broadcasting from WYTV7 in the beautiful Queen City, Charlotte, North Carolina, USA. Hey, friends, please come join me for a moment and just imagine how amazing you'd feel living the unique and distinct life that you were put on this planet to live, doing work you love, with people you love, in places you love, and all the while creating something of real value to others. That's what I call a life of significance, and I can tell you it makes a very happy life. And so can Liz Forkin Bohannon, and she's here to share her unique and distinct journey to her life of significance. But before we bring her on, I'd like to share a poem that we created to thank her for being our guest star today. We call it Just One, and it goes like this. Some chase a calling vast and high, too far to touch, too big to see. But Liz stepped out with open hands and said, "What if it starts with me? I'm going to Uganda to make a friend. No master plan, no safety net, just one small step, a seed of faith, and a life the world won't soon forget." She learned that purpose isn't found, not waiting somewhere out of view. It's built in moments, brave and small, in simply doing what you can do. From just one grew a movement wide, where courage meets community, where hearts connect and lives are changed through trust and truth and unity. So if you're waiting for a sign or searching for what you should do, lean in close. The truth remains. Just one might be the start for you. This is Just One, where waiting gives way to creating. And Liz is here to remind you, you don't have to find your passion, you build it. Hey, Liz, welcome to the show.
Wow. I've done a lot of podcast interviews in my life, and I gotta say, that was one of the more special introductions. So thank you, Matt.
Very good. I'm glad. Why don't you get us started by telling us what you're doing these days to make your mark of significance on the world?
My work these days really comes down to using different tools, writing books, giving keynote talks, doing coaching and consulting, my own podcast about how we can build lives that are rich in relationships. I spent the
Mm.
first 15 years of my life, as you mentioned, as a social entrepreneur and just came to realize that one of the things that we are struggling most consistently and deeply with here, specifically in the United States, is this epidemic of loneliness and isolation. And so I've thought a lot about how we can build relationally rich lives as busy, modern, mainstream Americans. And that is my heart right now, is helping to teach and equip other people to do the same.
Very good. So tell us about your two different frameworks. I think the community quotient and beginner's pluck. So start with
Yeah.
beginner's pluck because I think that's, and then it goes, expands, right? If I got that right, beginner's pluck and expands into the quotient.
Yeah, you're exactly right. Really, the first decade of my career, it started, as you alluded to in your poem, with me moving halfway across the world, sight unseen, to make a friend. I was interested in issues that were facing women and girls living in global extreme poverty, and had a lot of big ideas, knowledge, kind of more of an academic understanding of these issues. But when it came down to it, I didn't actually have any friends. I didn't have any relationships. My community
Mm.
wasn't really impacted by the thing that I said I cared about. And so at the ripe old age of 22, I quit my job, put in my 2 weeks notice, and bought a one-way plane ticket to Uganda. And it was
Goodness.
there that I ended up meeting a group of young women, really high capacity female scholars that tested into college but couldn't afford to go. And so I
Mm.
started a little sandal company called Sseko Designs. It's now called Noonday Collection, as a way to keep these young women employed and
Mm.
together living in community, and really spent the next 10, 15 years of my life as kind of an accidental entrepreneur scaling this company. And so the Beginner's Pluck framework, which is also the name of my first book, is really about what I learned by doing, and really how being a beginner in the end really served me, served
Mm.
me well. I came to the conclusion that regardless of if you are actually a beginner or you are further along in your journey, whether that's your career journey or your career of life, oftentimes we believe we have to be more of an expert. We have to have more experience. We have to have more connections. We have to have more knowledge in order to do things better, smarter, faster, stronger. And what I realized was actually there's a particular form of magic that comes from showing up like a beginner. So if you are a beginner, it's all about kind of
Mm-hmm.
owning it and understanding how that can be one of your superpowers. If you're not a beginner, it really becomes about learning how to channel your inner beginner. And so I wrote a book called
Mm-hmm.
Beginner's Pluck. I give talks all over the country and really world. Started a podcast called Plucking Up to explore these concepts. And it's only more recently in the last few years that I've been diving deeper into my work around the community quotient and relational wealth.
Very good. And who is Jessica Honegger?
Oh, wow. I'm so glad you asked. Jessica Honegger is now, she was 5 years ago, 10 years ago, my biggest competitor in business. And so we were both running separate companies, similar industries, somewhat similar product and target demographics, very similar missions. So she was my biggest competitor for about 10 years. And then a few years ago, we connected and said, you know what? What would it look like instead of us competing with one another if we actually joined forces and went together and built something even bigger and stronger together? And so we pursued that vision in the form of a merger acquisition. We merged our companies together under the Noonday Collection brand. And so today, a few years later, Jessica Honegger is now my business partner and also notably one of my very best friends. I could never have seen it coming that one of my best friendships of my life would come midlife and through a merger and acquisition. But
Yeah,
we have formed a really sweet friendship by that all really started with our decision to stop competing and start collaborating.
I love it. I got to tell you, when I was researching you, and somehow I stumbled upon this, the noonday, right?
Yeah.
And say, okay, what is this? And then I look that up, and I see this other blonde lady surrounded by black women over in Uganda. I said, what is going on here? Am I being put on? I mean, it couldn't be. Is Jessica Liz? Is Liz Jessica? No, they're two separate people doing the same thing in Uganda.
Isn't it wild? It's so wild. That's the thing about being an entrepreneur is, so much of the company that you build oftentimes is a reflection of who you are. And so I don't think we should have been that surprised when we actually got beyond the companies and got to know each other. We built very similar companies, and that's because we have very similar values and ideas of
Yeah.
what a fun good life is. So yes, we joke all the time. When we first merged our companies, Jessica gave me a gift, an engraved locket, and on the back she said, "Love your stunt double." And our joke
Oh, I
is
love
that we
it.
are that we get to be now one another's stunt doubles and kind of fill in for one another.
Well, I got to tell you, I could not believe my eyes. And I actually I doubled down to say, okay, let's make sure these are actually two separate people. And I found the merger. I said, okay, thank goodness.
Ah, that's so funny. Yep, I'm sure you are not the first person, Matt, who has been confused by that.
Very good. All right, Liz, let's do a little mathematics so our friends all around the world can get to know you through our happy formula. It's a very
Okay.
simple formula, but it's super powerful. And it goes like this: power plus purpose equals happy. So let's start with power. What are your personal practices for building up all the power that you need to get things done, whether it's physically, mentally, financially, spiritually, emotionally? In other words, what do you do on a regular basis to create the power you need to take really good care of yourself and your loved ones and still have plenty of love left over to be a giver to others?
Well, first and foremost, I mean, I have a handful of different things that are very important to me. My family, my husband Ben, we've got three young boys, Theo, Will, and Jack. And so, really carving out time and having a life where we've got some pretty sacred traditions and rituals that we protect to have time together as a
Mm,
family is a big part of me staying healthy and happy. Next up, I would say, and these might not be necessarily in order of importance. I guess if I was going in order of importance, I'd probably talk about my faith first. and would say that
Mm,
everything that I do, from investing in my family to my companies to my role more in the thought leader space, building connection and community, creating opportunity for the marginalized, all of that for me really does come down to my belief in the Imago Dei, that every human, no matter where they were born, what they look like, how much money their parents made, were created in the image of God and deserve the dignity and respect that
mm,
one being created in the image of God brings with them. And so, really centering on a daily basis, just on that truth that God knows me, God loves me, God knows others and loves them, and that I am invited to
mm.
be a part of that journey. And then I think it's definitely worth
Beautiful.
noting that a huge part, I would say I prioritize my social health probably above all other forms of health. I will say I am not the most consistent when it comes to regular intentional exercise or working out. I am very consistent when it comes to investing in friendships and relationships. If I can happen to be
Mm,
active with my friends, then I get to kill two birds with one stone. But I would really say I think about my social health like probably a lot of folks think about their physical health. If you want to be healthy, you've got to at
hmm.
least a few days a week prioritize it, put it on the calendar, not let other things take over. And while I'm not great at doing that for my physical health, I am very committed to my social health. So making sure I'm spending regular
Yeah.
time in community, having experiences, pouring into my proximate neighborhood community, a few other communities that I'm either a part of or have created is a big part of how I stay healthy and happy.
Yeah, very good. All right, Liz, let's talk about my favorite power generating concept. It's called a Kaizen state of mind. And it's this
Okay.
beautiful Japanese idea that small incremental improvements add up over time to yield great big results. And it's so powerful because it's about mindset, not circumstance. Kaizening life is knowing I can always do something better tomorrow than today. And it creates this gentle, relentless, never ending power that keeps lifting me higher day after day after day. So, Liz, how does Kaizening your life help you increase your power to continuously become more so you can keep on giving more and impacting even more lives?
Mm. I find that a big part of continuous improvement is actually just like data and knowledge and paying close attention to how the choices that I'm making are impacting me and impacting others around me. So I actually on a daily basis, pretty close to daily, I have a spreadsheet where I
Mm,
track all of the things that matter most to me. Even some of the kind of
mm,
principles or habits that we just talked about of did I spend time in prayer and start my day off in a state that I know is good and healthy? How much unplugged, really committed focused time did I have with my kids? How much of my work hours do I feel like I spent doing work that was really creative and life-giving versus stuff that is more energy draining to me? How much time did I spend with my friends? Did I exercise? Did I eat healthy that day? And I say all of that to say I find that it's much harder to make improvements if we don't actually pay attention and get really honest with ourselves with how we're spending our
yep.
time and our energy. And so that is a small initiative. It takes me no more than a minute or two a day to kind of fill out my little spreadsheet. But by just
Mm,
paying attention, the act in and of itself of knowing, I'm laying in bed in the morning thinking, am I going to grab my phone and start looking at my email? Or am I going to do my 15-minute, prayer and meditation? There's a little part of me that knows at the end of the day, I'm going to have to fill in that box. Did I start
correct.
off my
That's
day with
right.
prayer and meditation? And, no one else
Yep.
sees that but me. But I think that small amount of accountability that I have really throughout the course of my day really does add up. And it helps me make just
Yeah.
continuously more just healthy and aligned decisions throughout my days and my weeks and my months, which, of course, we know is how a life is built.
Yeah. I recently wrote a blog post around this very idea. What do I do every day? What do you do every day? If you can identify what you do every day, you got a pretty good idea if you're where your life is going, up, down,
Yeah.
sideways, backwards. And that's what you're doing basically is saying, this is what I'm doing every day. And if you're happy with it, you keep doing it. And if you're unhappy with something, you would change.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah,
But we can't make those changes until we get pretty honest with what we are actually doing with the time that we do have.
100%. All right, let's move on to purpose. That's the second part of our happy formula. And I've observed that major life transformations, those great big discoveries of purpose, often come from devastation, addiction,
Mm.
abuse, disease, death, disaster. Some horrible thing strips a life to its core, resulting in a big and often unexpected change. However, in my book, Turning Inspiration into Action, I share the transformational process that I've used to discover the purpose of my life through inspiration. So, how about you, Liz? Was there a specific moment or event or crisis or inspiration that revealed the unique and distinct purpose you were meant to live?
Yeah, I've heard it said that it is often in our greatest pain where we can find some purpose. And that oftentimes who we are made to be and what we're made to do is kind of serving the person that we used to be. And I would
Hmm.
definitely say that for me, specifically, my passion and focus around healthy relationships and really connected community stems absolutely from the lack that I had of that growing up. I had a
Hmm.
life growing up where I would say from the outside, it looked very, very charmed. But we abided as a family by kind of a pretty classic, I think. I don't think our family was very unique, but we were very focused on reputation and not bothering people and not being a burden and keeping your dirty laundry to yourself. And that created a big dichotomy between the life that I was actually living behind the four walls of our house and what everybody else thought our life looked like. And that
Hmm.
that dichotomy created a lot of pain for me growing up. I
Hmm.
was really profoundly lonely, even though I had plenty of friends, but I had friends that only knew the version
Hmm.
of me that I thought I could share and still be loved. And so that early
Hmm.
experience of pain, which at the time I just thought was a normal part of being a human, I think when I moved to East Africa and had this experience of living in a really close community that didn't really have the luxury or privilege of hiding so much from one another, and really there was a lot of requisite interdependence, that is when I had the realization that, oh, this isn't just a normal part of being a human. We can choose to live differently.
So this is the second time now you mentioned I just moved over to Uganda, and people don't just move over to Uganda. So give the audience and me, what led up to that, and the loneliness. Were you an only child?
I wasn't. Nope. I had two siblings and a lot of friends and was
Huh,
captain of the dance team. And so I
but you
think
were
that
lonely.
but I was lonely because I was hiding, because I was hiding. I was afraid if
Hmm.
anybody really knew what my family was going through and the challenges we had, I wouldn't be loved. I wouldn't be liked. I wouldn't be accepted.
Hmm.
I would be gossiped about or I would be kicked out of the club. And so I think that also gave me a real passion for, the loneliness that is hiding in plain sight, not just the kind where it's like,
Hmm.
someone is isolated and hasn't left their house, or the kid that truly sits by themselves every day at lunch, but recognizing that so many people are hiding in plain sight and wanting to have a life that really creates the right environments and conditions for people to come out of hiding and to be in relationship with one another.
So I'd love you. Let's. I don't want to leave this. Take our audience. Explain the decision, the catalyst that you were living here in America and you decided I'm going to go to Uganda. Explain that and how your parents reacted, because I think that was interesting in my research. And then also I have two big major inflection points: going to Uganda and merging your business. So take us through both of those, and the fear and the change, because our audience, I want them to understand, when you look to do something new, everybody's afraid. We don't know what we don't know, but when we do it anyways, sometimes beautiful things happen. So walk us through those two big inflection points, if you would.
Yeah. So when I was in my early 20s, what was really driving me was conviction, I would say. Conviction in the sense that I had an identity as somebody who cared about these global issues And the conviction came in when I realized that my life and my friends and my relationships didn't actually align with what I said I cared about. I talked a lot about the issue. I wasn't doing much about the issue. And so that created a big
Mm,
discomfort for me. Integrity is a super high value. And I think I had this thought where I was like, well, you could just move on and be like, you know what? You were passionate about that in college. Every college kid is idealistic and has something they're passionate about. And then we become adults and you start paying bills and you get married and you have
hmm
kids. And, or you could seize this specific moment in your life to actually do something. And I obviously chose the latter. I think if I'm being very honest too, though, I was bored. Like I got
hmm
my first job out of college and I saw the path ahead of me and I saw the kind of like typical American life that we're encouraged. It's like you graduate from college and then you just go off into the world and you do it on your own. You find a job, you move to the city that gives you the
hmm
best opportunity. If you are going to prioritize relationships, you kind of look for maybe one other person in the form of a spouse. And so I got the job, I had the boyfriend, I could kind of envision life ahead. And I was just kind of like, this isn't enough for me. This does not spark
hmm
joy, adventure. And so I think on the one hand, like I definitely moved to Uganda to go learn more firsthand about issues facing women and girls living in extreme poverty. But I also went
hmm
to escape the life I had really come from, kind of this classic American life, and the life I kind of saw stretching
hmm
out before me. And it was a bit of an escape hatch, I think, if I'm being really honest, an escape hatch that turned into the
Gotcha.
adventure and calling of my life.
Yeah, that's great. And then explain the meeting Jessica and deciding, because when you build something as an entrepreneur, then deciding to share it is a big deal. So talk about just going through that transition and any fear or angst that you had. And then obviously you're very, very thrilled that you've done it now.
Yeah, this is so different for every entrepreneur, depending on what you've built and then specifically where in the journey you are. Had this opportunity come up
True.
2 years in, 5 years in, 10 years in, it wouldn't have been right. And there would have been much too much for me to overcome. But it really did come at a
Mm,
time in my entrepreneurial journey where a couple of things were happening. I just had my third son. And so our family was growing. I had just come through a massive medical trauma. I got COVID-19 when
oh,
I was 9 months pregnant with my third son and almost died. I was in the ICU giving
oh,
birth to him. And so I'd had this medical
oh,
trauma.
goodness.
I now had three kids, and the pandemic was kind of coming to a close. And so our business was in this place where it needed so much has changed just from the economy. The COVID
Hmm
just completely turned our industry upside down. And so I knew I was going to go back into a season. We had been in a really comfortable place for several years, and I could see ahead of me I was going to go back into a season of having to put everything back into this business to really kind of like rebuild in some of these key areas because of the
Yeah.
disruption that COVID caused. And at the same time, my heart and passion for research and for speaking and for writing was starting to emerge and feel stronger, but I just did not have capacity to tend to those things because my more than full-time
Mm.
job was running this company. And I also have a deep desire to be a present member of my community. And so when Jessica approached me about the idea of us going together, it really honestly, I know for some entrepreneurs, it's a much more challenging, wrestling, do I, don't I? It was one of the clearest decisions of my life. It felt like here is the path
You said,
forward
yes, thank you.
where I can
Yeah.
continue contributing and building this company that I believe so much in, but in a way that I'll have support to also get to be the kind of mom that I want to be coming into this next
Yeah.
season and get to really focus and prioritize some of these other elements of my calling. And so, was it challenging? Yes, it was, you know, on a professional level, by far the hardest thing that I ever did. Was it emotional? Of course. But when you're really sure about a direction, you can handle a lot, So
Yeah.
there was a certain loss and grief that it went from being my thing for the first 15 years and I was the big boss. I made all of the decisions. It was a complete reflection of who
Yeah.
I was moving into knowing that I was going to have to give up a lot of that and that every decision from here on out would be a compromise. And that trade-off just felt absolutely in my heart like it was the right thing to do. And I can honestly say, while it was one of the more challenging things I've ever did, I've haven't a day in my life regretted the decision.
Very good. All right, Liz, thank you for all that. Now let's take a quick commercial break so our sponsor can spread a little love with our audience.
Are you ready to transform your life? At happyliving.com, we've discovered 4 keys to help you live with purpose, joy, and significance. Unlock your truth with the Happy Quiz. Unlock your happy formula with inspiring stories from the Something Significant Show. Unlock your roadmap to happiness with our free ebook, Making Your Mark of Significance. And unlock your inspired life with our life-changing e-course, The Philosophy of You and Your Inspired Life. This is your time to shine. Go to happyliving.com now and click Unlock the Power of You. Unlock your power. Live your best life. happyliving.com.
Kits for Kids are materials handed out by first responders to children during emergencies. The goal of distributing these kits is to mitigate the emotional trauma children experience during distressing events. These kits also help foster positive interactions between first responders and children, building trust and reducing anxiety. These kits feature toys and activities for children to engage with, providing distractions and stimulation. Models of first responder vehicles help children familiarize themselves with emergency personnel. Additionally, the kits include noise-canceling headphones and raincoats to help comfort children during distressing events. You can directly support Kits for Kids in several ways, including donating directly or sponsoring fundraising, volunteering your company for team building, or referring a law enforcement or first responder department to receive kits. Thank you for your support. Please visit www.wytv7.org for more information.
And we're back, and this is the Something Significant Show, and I'm your host, Matt Gersper. And my special guest star today is Liz Forkin Bohannon, a purpose-driven entrepreneur, best-selling author of Beginner's Pluck, and founder of Sseko Designs, one of the world's leading social enterprises creating opportunity for women across East Africa. What began with a simple decision, going to Uganda to make a friend, became a global movement. Today, through her Beginner's Pluck and Community Quotient frameworks, Liz helps leaders move from waiting to creating and build lives of purpose, passion, and impact. Liz, I love that you're teaching passion is not something you discover, but it's something you create through determined action. And I think you're going to love this article that I found. It's called The Science Behind the Power of Giving. It revealed something truly powerful, that the simple act of giving can be a pathway for discovering your reason for being on the planet. Science confirms that when we give our time, talents, and treasures, it doesn't just help others, but it transforms us too. Giving helps us rise above obstacles. It helps us find meaning, and it's even how we discover our purpose. So I updated our formula. Power plus purpose plus giving equals really happy. So how about you, Liz? Has giving your time, talents, and treasure been a powerful pathway for discovering your purpose and for getting through hardships and for bringing real meaning into your life?
Oh, absolutely. I would say it's arguably been the most foundational part of it for me. I really started my career with the belief that those of us who have been given privilege have a responsibility to not just enjoy that privilege, but to help share it and to make the world and the experience that others have, even if it's just one other, a little better and a little brighter. And absolutely the level of just fulfillment and joy and satisfaction that I have, that has come from just that, far supersedes any money that I've ever made, any accolades anyone has ever given me. And I deeply believe that a life lived in service to others, that is a formula for a good life.
Can you give us an example, a story maybe of a little girl or a woman that you embraced in this journey of yours that is just something you never forget, the joy you got from how you impacted that life?
Well, I'll tell you a story about a young woman who started out as an intern for me in Uganda. She's several years younger than me. She had just graduated or was on the cusp of college graduation and had studied procurement and logistics and could not find a job in Uganda. That's a very male dominated industry. So she faced some pretty enormous challenges. And so I hired her to be a procurement and logistics intern. I didn't even know what that meant, to be completely honest with you. But she started working at our company, and very quickly it became very clear that while she was born into a very different environment that I was born into, and she had definitely didn't have the privilege that I had, she was every bit, if not more, honestly, smart and hardworking and creative. And so she continued to I wouldn't say I gave her any opportunities. Every opportunity that she got, she very much so earned, and
Hmm.
eventually became a full-time employee. And then she became the general manager of our company. And
Uh,
along with the merge a couple of years ago, we actually sold the majority of our company in Uganda to her. Her name is Agnes.
oh,
And
wow.
now Aggie is the majority owner of our company in Uganda. And frankly, what she has done over the last few years of innovating and creating new market opportunities and investing in the young women in Uganda is every bit, if not even better than what I had done in the 15 years
Awesome.
prior. And along with Jessica, I have the privilege and honor of saying, in addition to now being a business partner, she really is one of my dearest closest friends. And
Yeah.
I really do believe that when you do work that you love, that is so values aligned, one of the great benefits to that is, I think, the friendships and the relationships that you
Yeah.
can form, even in the workplace, are so significant because you know that the people working alongside of you have a similar heart
Yeah.
and value set, and that you're not just, showing up and punching the card and trying to make a buck, but you really are trying to make the world a better place in a way that you kind of agree at what it means to live a beautiful life.
Yeah.
So yes, my relationship with Aggie and her story is something that has been a great gift to this journey.
That's awesome. And that mindset, that giving mindset, science says brings real meaning to our lives. And we can see it, the expression on your face, and the joy we feel when we're creating value for others confirms it. But you mentioned something deeper at work, Liz, when you were just telling us that. I believe the magic of life comes when we're giving from living in our purpose, because that's where joy doesn't just touch the receiver, it flows to the giver too, and even to those witnessing the giving, which is why I got goosebumps when you were telling me about Agnes's story. And something else happens there. Fear seems to loosen its grip, self-focus shrinks, peace grows steadier, and hope grows stronger. And it all comes from aligning with purpose and becoming more so we can give more. So, Liz, our audience and I would like to witness what that magic looks like in your life. So please sit back, open your heart, and have a listen to what people are saying about the impact that you're making in their lives because you're giving from living in your purpose. One person said, I love, love, love her podcast. It's inspiring and relatable, and I always feel recharged and better just for listening. Another said, thanks for shaping and inspiring me and other women in Uganda. You have a golden heart, and I miss your laughter. And another said, getting to walk alongside her as a Sseko fellow, a leader, a mama, a wife, and a woman have truly been gifts I am so thankful to receive. Others said, love this lady. She's got substance and sass and a heart for justice and equality. Awesome, an amazing storyteller, more than a role model or mentor, a friend, a great leader, just so full of life and light. Her spirit is contagious. Her advice is transformational. She sparkles with energy, motivating, all caps, phenomenal, phenomenal with an exclamation point, and fantastic, all caps and 3 exclamation points. Liz is brave, practical, and honest, optimistic, passionate, highly recommended, witty, wise, and brilliant, fun, humble, engaging, innovative, informative, everything you could ask for in a keynote speaker, a world-class communicator, and even better person. She helped me unlock the next chapter of my story, and for that, I am truly, eternally grateful. Mm-hmm. It may sound dramatic, but after a focus lab with her, I am a different human. A focus lab with Liz is like a roadmap and an epic pep talk rolled into one. And finally, this person said simply, very few people can inspire and encourage like Liz can to do that unique thing that only you were created to do. This lady is the real deal. So Liz, how does all that incredible love make you feel?
Wow, Matt, again, I was not expecting this. I feel so warm and I feel just, I think, lucky. I feel so grateful because on the other side of every ounce of that feedback was someone who was open-hearted and generous enough to enter into some form of real connection with me. And I just feel so grateful for how many incredible people that I've gotten to work with and walk alongside on this journey of mine that are of like mind and like heart. But to hear them all read back to me is so lovely and a bit humbling.
Mm-hmm. Well, folks, that's it. That's what the show is all about. We're here, Liz and me and all our guest stars, to encourage you, our wonderful listeners, to find that same magic in your own life because it's available to you. It's available for everyone, and it comes from this great big happy circle. Giving your time, talents, and treasure is a powerful pathway for discovering your purpose. And then giving from living in your purpose brings a deep joy to you and to those around you too. So it seems that giving leads to purpose, and giving from purpose leads to joy. So Liz, if I'm going to fully capture the exponential power of our happy formula, I've got to tweak it just a bit more. The power times purpose times giving equals happy to the third power, and that's really, truly, deeply happy. Does that sound about right to you, Liz?
Sounds right to me, Matt.
Very good. Let's wrap things up with the lightning round. I love the power of words and how the right quote can move us, not just to think differently, but even to act differently. So as I prepared for today, a few surfaced, not just because they're meaningful, but because they reflect your journey of building, starting small, and choosing action over waiting. So I'll read each one to you and ask, just share your first thoughts that come to mind. No rehearsing, just truth. Here we go. From Lao Tzu, he said, the journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step.
It's everything. Yes, absolutely. That we can't know how the journey is going to unfold. We can only know what the next right step is. And so absolutely every great journey starts the same.
Yeah. Okay, I want to put these two together. So bear with me. The first is from Jack London. He said, you can't wait for inspiration. You have to go after it with a club. And the second is from you. I've heard you say, you don't find your passion, you build it.
Absolutely. I think folks have a wrong belief that passion just strikes, inspiration hits, it's magical, it's mystical, but I actually think it is built with a lot of commitment and faithfulness and boredom and frustration and getting your butt in your seat to do the work that you were made to do.
Yes, ma'am. From the Dalai Lama, he said, happiness is not something ready-made. It comes from your own actions.
Yeah, I mean, I think I've heard it said that it's like happiness is 20% circumstance and 80% the story that we tell ourselves. And so I would say not just our actions, but even the story that we tell ourselves about our own lives and circumstances.
Mm-hmm. This is from Albert Schweitzer. He said, the only ones among you who will be really happy are those who have sought and found how to serve.
And this circles back to what we just talked about. I can't imagine a life where you feel happy and fulfilled on a soul level without knowing that your existence brought joy and light and possibility to others.
Yes. All right, this is our show anchor. It comes from Goff, and he said, whatever you can do or dream you can do, begin it. Boldness has genius, power, and magic in it. Begin it now.
Begin it now. Begin it now. Do today what you want to look back on a year from now and say, I'm so glad you did that today.
Yeah. Yeah. Wonderful, Liz. Those quotes and your responses give voice to the power of starting small, the courage to take action, and the transformation that happens when we stop waiting and begin creating. So thank you for sharing your wisdom with us today.
Thank you, Matt.
And
phenomenal conversation. Thank you for having me.
wonderful. And now, my friends, if Liz's story has inspired you, if it lifted your spirit or encouraged you to remember your true self, not who the world told you to be, but who you were created to be, then I invite you to share that energy with the incredible team at WITV7 who make this show possible. They're a 501c3 charity on a mission to educate, encourage, and empower people in need. Every gift matters, big and small. With your support and their tireless work, lives are being transformed, and our circle of love just keeps expanding. So donate today, because it'll do good and it'll make you feel good too. Liz, I love how you've taken something that feels so big and overwhelming, like purpose, and make it tangible, simple, and doable. And I admire how you're not just helping people to think differently, you're helping them to act differently, take the next step, and truly build a life of significance. And I'm super happy that you've shared your practical, courageous, and contagious spirit on our show today. Will you just take a few minutes and share any parting remarks you'd like to leave with our audience?
Now, Matt, I think you are modeling by example exactly what this show is about. And so I just want to say to anybody who's listening, that feels like they don't have a big enough idea or a big enough resume or a big enough skill set, that the world doesn't need more big. What the world needs is you to do the next right thing with wonder and excitement and gratitude, and to do it in service of others. And so we need you and your unique gifts and the story that you've lived. So start now.
Ah, beautiful. Thank you, Liz. And friends, it's because of stories like Liz's and listeners like you that we've been named one of the top 100 life purpose podcasts worldwide, currently ranked at 17. So thank you. I appreciate your support for our mission and for sharing these stories of inspiration and purpose. I also want to thank WITV7 for hosting and promoting our show so we can keep interviewing inspiring guest stars like Liz and reaching folks just like you, ready to create your own extraordinary lives. And most especially, thank you to viewers and listeners. If you'd like to learn more about Liz Forkin Bohannon and discover how to move from waiting to creating, you'll find all the links in our show notes. Find Liz, learn from her, and take the first small step towards building the life you are made to live. From me to you, dear friends, I love you and I want you to be really, truly, deeply happy too. So don't miss this. Go to happyliving.com right now on your phone and start at the top, because we've created a place where people begin to believe, where real stories, powerful tools, and a deeper source of purpose all come together to unlock their power. And that's what we want for you. Till next time, I'm Matt Gersper. You are awesome. And this is the Something Significant Show.
Thanks, Matt.
And we're out.